Welcome everyone, I'm Matthew the Hero, and today we're gonna talk about Square and Disney's action RPG collaboration, Kingdom Hearts. The game was developed and published by Square and originally released for the PlayStation 2 on March 28 of 2002, and was doing this now. In December of that same year, the game received an update in the form of the Final Mix, which was Japan exclusive, until the 1.5 HD Remix collection released for the PlayStation 3. Later, the entire series up to, but not including Dreams Out Distance, was released for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch as the 1.5 and 2.5 HD Remix. The game follows Sora, a naive, kind-hearted kid who is dragged into the adventure by chance, after monsters appear on the island that he and his friends, Riku, Kairi, Tidus, Wakka, and Selphie, call home. He awakens the power to summon a key-shaped sword right before he is torn asunder from the island, from his world, and wakes up in a quaint little city called Traverse Town. A place we'll come to learn is a sort of gathering place for those who lost their homes. Here we meet and get aided by Cid, Aerith, and Yuffie, or Yuffie if the credits are to be believed. I like how it's Squall parentheses Leon. Yuffie? Yuffie? Did I see that right? As well as Squall Leonhart, who is all about professional. Here we also get acquainted with our lifelong friends and surrogate dads, Donald Duck and Goofy. We form a team as they're looking for their king, Michael Mouse I of the Mice Dynasty, and in his last letter before his disappearance, he had let it be known that he'd be found by following a Keyblade wielder, so off we go on adventures using the king's gummy ship, a method of transportation that is treated as normal in universe but never got an explicit explanation of what it is aside from spaceship. Visit the various lands of classic Disney movies like Alice in Wonderland, The Little Mermaid, Hercules, and Nightmare Before Christmas, getting closer to reuniting with Riku and Kairi, as well as finding the king with each world. From this point on, I'll be spoiling this 22-year-old game, so if you'd like to avoid spoilers, skip to the timestamp shown on screen. As we make our way through the worlds, we, the player, also catch quick wind of there being a conspiracy against Sora, or I suppose it is more fitting to say, for the darkness, by the villains of these movies, and the way we get to know this is so charming in how much it reveals who's who but pretends it doesn't, that I can't not pretend that I don't know either. Eventually, we meet up with Riku, but our time spent together is short before he takes his leave and confides in Maleficent, the latter telling him that Sora has replaced him and Kairi with Donald and Goofy. Heartbroken by Sora's apparent betrayal, he turns to darkness, which we find out later. Kairi herself cannot avoid being important, being one of the 7 princesses of Heart, who possess hearts of pure light, which is important as these are necessary to summon and open the titular Kingdom Hearts. Now, this might beg the question, what is Kingdom Hearts? Well, first off, we need to keep in mind that in this series, Heart kinda sort of might as well be synonymous with soul. Light is a word for good, and dark or darkness are words for evil. Those last two get a bit more complicated later on, but mostly whether they have a tangible form or not, so that information can be disregarded for now. In this game, it is a door to darkness, but as the series progresses it becomes a large heart in the sky. It is said to have the power to destroy the universe, as well as rebuild it after. It might also be heaven, or rather some form of afterlife, as, if I recall correctly, the the hearts of the fallen go to Kingdom Hearts, which might be where it gets its name from, a Kingdom of Hearts. And all of this is really just a long-winded way of saying, we don't know, Kingdom Hearts is whatever the writers need it to be. To go back to the story, Riku, or rather Riku's body overtaken by the antagonist of Kingdom Hearts thus far, Ansem, in his Secret of Darkness flavor, has tried forging the Keyblade of Hearts out of the present 6 Hearts of Pure Light, Alice and the Disney princesses who have been kidnapped throughout the game. But it proved ineffective as he did the last one, Kairi's as well to be able to forge the Keyblade proper. This is how we find out that Kairi, through some manner of way, had entrusted Sora with her heart and had resided in him, leading us to the one single line every prepubescent Kingdom Hearts fan has etched into their minds.
Kairi's inside me?
Defeating Ansem here and following him leads us to the end of the world, where we fight one of the most irritating, frustrating bosses of my life, but more on that later. So onto gameplay. It is paramount that I make note of the manner in which you gain access to options. Of course, you choose the game's overall difficulty before starting, but the opening tutorial asks you to answer questions and make decisions which won't make sense immediately if at all. But these are manners to fine-tune your experience. First, you're asked to choose and abandon from a list of sword, shield, and staff. Their connotations are perhaps obvious, but alongside changing Sora's stats, they also determine what abilities he gains and when, as well as how many items he is able to carry. Shortly thereafter, on Destiny Island, you must answer the questions 3, as proposed by Tidus, Selphie, and Wakka. The answers you give here determine your level progression, as in how long it takes for you to level up throughout the game. Now, to move on to the biggest gameplay addition that sets this game apart, the command menu. Square had spent a lot of time trying to make a hybrid real-time action and turn-based battle mechanic, both before and after this game, arguably to diminishing returns. From games like Chrono Trigger, where perhaps at most you didn't notice the difference to the regular turn-based battle mechanic, to games like Final Fantasy XII. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts tries its own method of making a hybrid by having the command menu. The command menu is kinda just what it says on the tin, a list of actions you can take, not unlike the menu systems of turn-based titles. You just do the things in real time. That's it. That's all they had to do. And it's good. You navigate the list with the D-pad and confirm your choice with the bottom-most face button on the controller, which I am making note of solely because I know the mechanics of it bewildered me when I watched videos of the game growing up. On your travels, you're accompanied by Donald and Goofy, the universal constants of the world, as well as possibly some of the residents if you agree to it. An important thing to note here is that while the CPU companions, namely Donald, since he seems to cause the most issues for people, might be on the stupider side sometimes, you can counteract that by customizing them to your liking. Donald keeps whacking people with his stick because he's out of MP, but he just dies to the idea of a fraying breeze. Tell him to stop. Goofy is drinking all the potions because he has an addiction and thinks they're booze. Revoke drinking privileges. Peter Pan? Fuck off! Other than the previously mentioned differences, Kingdom Hearts' progression system is largely what you'd expect. You find, gain, or buy new items to raise your stats, buff or debuff certain things. Other difference here, however, is that Sora's abilities don't follow a linear progression as such. There is a set path of how you unlock abilities that can be influenced by the choice of the build at the beginning of the game, but rather than a skill tree, Kingdom Hearts boasts a skill list. If you unlock the skill and have the necessary AP to accommodate it, you can freely equip or unequip a skill as long as you're not in combat, and this is true for everyone that may be in your party, including guests. I also think I should explain the tech system, which is this game's manner of amassing XP. The tech system is rather simple, but such is the beauty of it. You gain a set amount of tech points, experience, for beating enemies, and on top of that, you can earn bonus points for utilizing the game's mechanics to a greater potential by doing things like parrying moves and using the right kinds of magic to counteract the Heartless. Doing things like casting gravity on flying enemies to bring them down to the ground, or utilizing the correct element on already elementally charged Heartless. Yet another noteworthy thing about Kingdom Hearts is that it tries to break the monotony by introducing different manners of gameplay, as was the style at the time. Not wholly unlike Namco's patented minigame loading screens, or a number of other PS2-era games that featured game modes that ventured into a different genre than that of the main attraction, Kingdom Hearts has both the Gummy Ship, the previously mentioned method of transportation betwixt worlds, as well as the 100-acre woods, an entire world dedicated to being different from the rest, but let's go in order. The Gummy Ship in Kingdom Hearts 1 is Star Fox. You control the Gummy Ship and it's aiming reticule at the same time. You shoot stuff, you arrive at places eventually. That being said, it isn't a complete ripoff of Star Fox either, as the Gummy Ship features shipbuilding, where you can customize your ship, the Kingdom, Highwind, or in my playthrough's case, the Soramor, by adding additional blocks, weapons, and boosters if you figure out how to replace the onboard computer unlike I did. Which, to be fair, after I stopped recording I did figure it out, but whatever, that doesn't matter. The 100-acre woods is a bonus build introduced after your second visit to Traverse Town that you have to collect all of the torn pages, 5 of them if my memory doesn't fail me, to finish. It's a collection of minigames from Simon Says platforming to hide and seek to attempted murder. The game also features its fair share of collectibles at a whopping 4 types. You have the Training Marks, Torn Pages, the 101 Dalmatians, and Ansem's Reports. Ansem's Reports are the least egregious of the 3 we haven't hit on yet in number, but they're all the more difficult to find, as a number of them are given to you through regular story progression and stuff like beating the Hades Cup, I think. The 101 Dalmatians are the second in number, as the naming is misleading. While you are, by technicality, looking for 99 pups, you find them by the threesome, making it so you truly only need to find 33 chests containing dogs. This leaves us with the Trinities, which are special interactions you can get with Donald and Goofy in your party if you press the interact key on specially marked locations. With each colored Trinity corresponding to a different action that we can undertake. You unlock these actions as you progress through the story and deepen Sora's relationship with his dads. Trinities are the least consequential collectibles, generally speaking, although they might lead you to other collectibles or just give you some good items. They can by and large be ignored, whereas Torn Pages contribute to the 100-acre woods storyline where you're so inclined to care, Ansem's reports contribute to unlocking the secret video at the end of the game, which you also get for beating the game on Proud. And most importantly, the Dalmatians contribute to unlocking the upgrade for Arrow, which you'll need for the final boss. Speaking of, the bosses of Kingdom Hearts are varied, not just in quality, but in stature as well. Throughout the game, you fight bosses like Cerberus, Clayton, Ursula, and Ansem. Some of them are giants, some of them are human, and some of them are the world of chaos. The bosses of Kingdom Hearts 1 tend to have a gimmick to them. Fighting Genie Jafar, you can hit Iago instead to decrease his health. You can't damage Ursula unless you mess up the magic she's brewing by adding your own. Clayton is in possession of a firearm and a chameleon the size of 2 trucks, but more importantly, a firearm, and he really wants you to know that. This being a Square RPG, at least of sorts, it also features the classic Square 5-phase boss fight against God. Except for an active battle system, so he's a bit more annoying. Which takes us to Ansem, and more importantly, the World of Darkness. I'm counting these two together to make the 5 phases since they're the same person and you don't get a break between the fights. Ansem's first phase is whatever. It can be a bit tricky, but he's holding back. The worst thing he'll do here is summon his stand, the sort of spirit seen here beside him, and then put an effect on you where the stand will instead come out of you, damaging you every couple of seconds. Ansem's second phase is one that people tend to have some trouble with. He can still stick his stand on you, but alongside it, he gains an invincible shoulder charge that can only be parried or arrowed away and likes to spam in quick succession. This phase isn't great, but it can be beaten with relative ease, assuming the appropriate amount of elbow grease and arrow have been applied. Then we reach phase 3 of Ansem, when he becomes the World of Darkness, which is where my problems begin. The World of Darkness has 3 phases, hence we're referring to Ansem as having 5 of those, and the first one is the most difficult of these. In this form, Ansem forbids his stand as he has now become it, and instead utilizes Soul Eater, a double-sided glaive or sword, for close-range attacks, as well as homing lasers for long-range ones. Now allow me to inform you of the sheer quantity of hatred I harbor for these fucking lasers. You see, the idea is not complex. You see laser, you dodge laser. Simple as. But in reality, you see laser, you dodge laser, then you get hit because the lasers move with you for a bit and stop at an inopportune time, or just because the depth perception on these lasers is abysmal. In theory, this is why upgrading Arrow to Arrow Ga is recommended before facing World of Darkness, since Arrow Ga is the most universal way of damage reduction, but seeing as how I was playing the game on Proud, that didn't help me quite as much as I had hoped for. Making things worse, once World of Darkness reaches critical health, it unleashes an unending stream of lasers, which you can only find reprieve from by zeroing at Ansem's health bar to reach phase 2. Phase 2 is more annoying than difficult. Then again, that also easily applies to the first phase, but I suppose in a different manner. You beat World of Darkness' second phase by beating a sort of mini-boss attached to Ansem before going into the Darkness dimension to free your friends. First Goofy, then Donald. Some of these mini-bosses could be a bit perturbing, but they only really have potential to become problems once Goofy is free and he's immortal, so you truly only need patience and enough health to deal the killing blow. Once you're done doing the routes through this, you reach phase 3, whereas phase 1 is the closest I've gotten to inserting my paws into the screen in hopes I can strangle a motherfucker, and phase 2 is fine, but I could see how some people might have some problems with it. Phase 3 is just a victory lap. You're reunited with Donald and Goofy and teach Ansem the power of friendship by reenacting that one scene from JoJo Part 5. In phase 3, he mostly does his melee routine with some dialback lasers sprinkled in, as well as a new attack that's supposedly devastating, but even on Proud, the strategy of ignoring it and making like Ant-Man and inserting myself up his ass seemed to counteract it well enough. The game also features hidden, more challenging boss fights against the likes of the Ice Titan from Hercules, as well as the famous Sephiroth fight. Done with most of the intricacies of the gameplay, I suppose now is as good a time as any to hit up the presentation. For the graphics, the stylized cartoony nature lends itself better to aging, of course, but we also need to note that the HD remix, which is the version I used for this review, is a remake, because they torched the source code for the original game, as well as things like the models as far as I'm aware, once they were done with the original. So the graphics hold up, but one has to question how much of that is down to them having to remake the game for the PS3. One noteworthy point of contention here is the differences between the enemy designs between the original game and Final Mix, which the HD remix is obviously based off of. For some reason, they decided to recolor enemies between the versions, some being upgrades, some being downgrades, and most being side grades that make no sense other than doing it just cause. See, I personally don't see the issue with the wyverns being blue instead of red, but then you have to ask why they even bother doing it since it doesn't change a whole lot. And then the ghost enemies potentially first seen in Halloween Town as well as Monstro got made into pumpkin heads, which makes sense for the former but not the latter. For the sound, well, our main trios, Sora's, Riku's and Kairi's performances can be a bit shaky and or wooden at parts, but that's an issue that is quickly ironed out as the series progresses, and everyone else gives exemplary performances that fit the game like a glove. They ham it up just the right amount. Hades is the best part of not just this game, but the entire series, and I hate Hercules, so that should say something about the quality of the performance on display. And the music is top notch, which is, or I suppose was, to be expected of Square in this era of theirs. And I'd be amiss if I didn't mention the title theme of the game, Simple and Clean by Hikaru Utada, which I'm at a loss for words to praise properly. That being said, we also need to make note of the fact that the remix comes with remixed versions of the songs. These remixes are generally a mixed bag. For example, I prefer the remix version of Gearing Up from 2, so much so that I've been using it as the end card music since I brought that thing back, but find the remix of Simple and Clean to be lesser than the original. All in all, Kingdom Hearts is, in my opinion, exemplary in its weight class. It's not a Shakespearean drama, but a goofy romp through Disney's IPs with, get this, heart. The game's insistence on treating its subject matter with some seriousness and not faltering into acknowledging the absurdity of the images it provides, such as fighting Cloud's strife with the aid of Donald, Duck, and Goofy, is one of its major charms. Its blend of action and RPG elements is a treat, and I honestly can't praise the gameplay enough. In getting this review made, I had not only played through this game once to write the notes and gather footage, but also started up another playthrough just for fun. It doesn't feel like I've just finished another playthrough whatsoever. There's no burnout that you'd assume would come from such an act, which seems like a good indicator of the game's quality to me. Speaking of playthroughs though, in trying to do something different, I had made the footage gathering for this review into a let's play, so if that seems like something up your alley, the links to my second channel should be in the description and end card. And remember, somehow, somewhere, Donald is dead.